Minister for Education.
Thank you, sir. I'm pleased to report to the House that the month of May, members will recall, is History Month. And the History Trust of South Australia has indeed been able to report to me the 17th History Festival has proceeded extremely well. Members might recall that last year, of course, in 2020, the History Festival had to be cancelled at late notice, which was a serious disappointment to all of us. Indeed to the History Trust, but of course the History Festival attracts a significant number of its audience from amongst our older residents in our community, and it was obviously, in retrospect, the right thing to do. People who might have been vulnerable to the pandemic could not have been exposed to the risk in good conscience, and so the 2020 festival had to be cancelled. And that was a great shame because for many years the History Festival in South Australia has been growing and growing. It started, of course, in 2004 as History Week and indeed then became a month. So significant was the community's response. And in 2018 and then 2019, we had record numbers of events, record numbers of community organisations putting forward their events, and record numbers of participants. Well over 100,000 South Australians who were involved in attending History Festival activities throughout the 2019 festival. So, the 2021 History Festival, I'm very pleased to report to the House, had more than 380 event organisers getting back on track, organising events, whether they be local history groups, sporting organisations, universities and institutions, significant South Australian businesses, local councils, organisations large and small, celebrating the uniqueness of whatever their organisation or whatever their local community has to offer to our great state, and collectively helping to bring together an understanding of what it is to be a South Australian in 2021, knowing where we have come from informs where we are and who we are and helps us to do better in where we're going. I was pleased that there are a number of events focused on recognising our Aboriginal history here in South Australia, and also, of course, not surprising because of the relationship between the History Trust through the Migration Museum with many multicultural communities, a particular focus in many events on multicultural South Australia. 620 events took place through the month of May and were enjoyed by many tens of thousands of South Australians. The theme this year was that of change. And what more appropriate theme could there be in an extraordinary time such as this? Change for the better, change for the worse, on a big or small scale and everything in between. And event organisers were encouraged to plan around this idea, although, of course, many of the old favourites that every year attract many interested people, whether they be the cemetery tours or tours of tunnels in unusual places or war bunkers in South Australia, were very much taken on board. Events happened almost everywhere in our state. Right across the great expanse of South Australia, in rural towns, in metropolitan Adelaide, cities and suburbs, in museums and libraries, in boats, trains and buses and heritage buildings, on the street, by the beach and in nature. I commend all of those hundreds of organisations who took the time and trouble to organise those events for the broader community's benefit. Many of these events were, of course, free events, available for all South Australians to learn a bit more about their state, a little bit more about their local area, or potentially reach out and learn more about a different area. I hope if people are hearing about the History Festival for the first time, they put it in their diaries for May next year, because this year, of course, we have also moved to an online program. We're able to provide information to people who didn't have access to a web portal if they were interested in the History Festival, but that online program also enabled a very easily searchable and modern approach to finding out about events. I'm looking forward to seeing the work the History Trust will continue to do in the years ahead. This is its 40th year. Indeed, I think Murray Hill was the Minister for the Arts in the Tonkin government who conceived and worked with David Tonkin to bring that about. It was announced on Proclamation Day in 1980, and indeed it passed through the Parliament, through both houses, before the middle of 1981. So it was probably about 40 years ago to this sitting, or maybe off by a couple of weeks, that it took place. 40 years of the History Trust. They've done a fantastic job. They continue to evolve. I congratulate Elizabeth Ho and the trustees Greg Mackey and the staff, and all of the volunteers who have made the 2021 History Festival a great success, and I can't wait to see what they do in the future.